And welcome back to my channel. Unless you're new here, and then just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror. And I'm going to do my Night of the Living Dead universe ranking. I'm even going to include the two that I don't have. One because I've never really wanted it, and the other one because I cannot get it. I cannot find it. I know I've seen lots of collectors that managed to get it when it came out, or I don't know, have a really large bank account and can afford to go and buy it, but it's not me. So that's one of them. But yeah, so I'm going to rank the Night of the Living Dead universe. Always remember, I love watching people's rankings. I love watching people's top lists and worst lists and things like that, because I understand we are all a diverse group of people who are entertained, thrilled. We're thrilled, we're entertained, we gravitate towards different things, and that's what I find that diversity very cool in the horror community, and I'm always really okay with people hating what I love, as long as they're okay with the reverse, and as long as they understand the same thing and don't, give me a problem about it. Because I can definitely return a problem. I have no problem with returning a problem. So, I respect everybody's opinions and likes and dislikes, and I expect the same in return, and that's the way it goes. So we are going to rank the Night of the Living Dead universe, many of which are, of course, George A. Romero, and then the little spin-offs and reimagings and remakes and stuff like that. And this is my, I had to sit, I had to think about it, I had to which one gave me the most pleasure and all. Now I will say off the bat, I have no outs in this franchise. I like all of them. One of them really doesn't do anything for me. But as far as all of the rest, I love every one of these movies. I really do. I have them. I own them. I watch them when I decide to do this universe's marathon. I watch every one of them. I like things about every one of them. So it's okay. I love every one of them. So don't take their place as anything, but it's a ranking. You have to rank them. So we're going to start with the first one. And that is the one that I don't have, and that's the original Night of the Living Dead, the black and white from 1967. It just never, or 1968, was when it was released. George Romero, John Russo, George Romero wrote it. Dwayne Jones, Judith O'Dea, Carl Hardman. I don't feel the reason it's here, is not because it's the bottom. Although could be. I don't know. If I had it, maybe I would know. But when I discovered horror at 14, those 2 years after that, I saw 2,000 horror movies, rented 2,000 horror movies. I remember seeing this a couple of times. I remember it not doing anything for me. Perhaps if I had it, I would review it and think differently. But, if I go watch the preview, don't really, or the trailer, I don't really get any more thrills about it than I had at the beginning, So I don't really feel good enough to judge this or put it in a place in the ranking. So I'm just mentioning it as part of the universe. So moving on, coming in at number 9 of the real ranking, we have Day of the Dead Bloodline from 2017. I find a lot of good in this movie. I like this movie. I gave it a 6.9, I believe, out of 7. 6.9 out of 10. So there was only 2 of these movies, well, maybe 3, but only 2 of them that I had enough serious issues here and there that did enough to distract me. Because if you can distract me from enjoying a movie, then you've got a problem. And there was some bad acting in this movie. There was a couple of effects that bothered me in this movie. But then there was a lot more balance. The balance of me loving stuff in it was a lot more than what I didn't like. but still you have to rank them. And so Day of the Dead 2017, Day of the Dead Bloodline, starring Sophie Skelton, Jonathan Sheesh, and Jeff Gum. Definitely, it had a lot of problems to me. The sporadic bad acting, specifically on a couple of actors. There were some effects that bothered me. And yeah, that was the big things in this movie. A few of the effects. However, my loves about this movie, I like the story. I like what they did. I liked what they changed Bud into, which is a very vicious. That's probably the best thing I like about this movie, was them turning the Bud character into a Zed called Max, and he is a very, very bad zombie. I mean, he is gross and gory and vicious and nasty. Unlike the other two movies, they did not make him to be docile or domesticated. Anyway, he is very, very evil, because he was evil before he got changed. And it definitely held true. So yes, at number 9, we have Day of the Dead Bloodline. There's still a great deal I love about it, though. Moving on to number 8, we have the other movie that I had serious issues with. It's going to make some people upset, and that is Day of the Dead 1985. So 2 of the Day of the Dead's got towards the bottom here. I did not have, there is one issue that exists for both of these, and that is terrible acting, sporadically terrible acting. There were characters and actors in this that were great and did not distract me. Same with this. But there were characters and actors in this, Miguel for existence, and both of these Miguel. Terrible actor. Terrible acting overall. The problem I didn't have with this movie, with Bloodline, was the special, the makeup, the Zeds themselves. I loved them in Bloodline. That was the biggest problem with this movie. The makeup is absolutely awful. They don't scare me. It's comical. It's almost parody. So I had a lot of issues with Day of the Dead 1985, written and directed by Romero, starring Laurie Cardile, Terry Alexander, and Joseph Pilato. I had some serious issues with this movie, but I still love it. But it comes in at number 8. At number 7, we have Survival of the Dead. It was released in 2009, written and directed by Romero, starring Alan Van Sprang, Kenneth Welsh, and Kathleen Monroe. It's a side story born out of the Diary of the Dead movie. And I have a really good time with this. One of the stars is Jasper from The 100, so I knew him very well in my pantheon in my brain. I knew him as an actor very well. I like Jasper in The 100, and he's one of the main stars in this movie. I liked the story. I liked where George Romero took it. There was some silly stuff, but not enough to bother me. And so it comes in at number 7. Survival of the Dead. Now, coming in at number 6, or number 5, that was number 6. Okay, I know. Wait, I see the problem. Yeah, there's the problem. So, that was number 7. Number 6 is one that I don't have, but I wish I did. And that is Dawn of the Dead from 1978. I don't like the makeup in it, which is a big complaint I have about, I guess, the early films. But I don't like the makeup in those. I guess we're spoiled. Could that be it? We're spoiled by the fantastic practical effects of 28 Days Later and Maggie and Dawn of the Dead from Zack Snyder, where maybe we're spoiled by how good you can do makeup these days or in later movies. So these movies from back then, I mean, you know, looking like one of the blueberry girl from Willy Wonka does not scare me, and that's the whole point. You know, if you're mad at me because I'm not scared about somebody that just looks like they've got purple makeup on, and you know, oh, it's a zombie. Why is it a zombie? Well, because it's purple. Well, so is the fucking girl in Willy Wonka. She just ate the wrong bubblegum. Doesn't mean she's a zombie. So that's what I'm saying. The makeup, you know, from '85 was terrible, and the makeup from '78, I don't like it. But I love the actors. I love the story. And I really wish that I had that movie. But that's the one that I was telling you about is like ridiculous. If you go and try to find Dawn of the Dead 1978, unless you were around at those releases, when those two releases, I think somebody had done a re-release a few years ago. Very limited though. It is outrageous to try to get a hold of this movie. And that's very sad because I do love this movie and would like to have it. And yet I don't. So, you know, that irritates me. That irritates me quite a bit. Okay, yeah. So that irritates me quite a bit that it's so hard to get. And I'm like, can't somebody like do a reissue or something of this? Because I'd really like to have it. But coming in at number 7 is that. Or 6. Coming in at number 6 is Dawn of the Dead. Well, I keep getting confused. That's what happens when you're trying to do a ranking, but you don't have them in your hands. There's a couple that's missing because you don't have them. That's my excuse anyway. So coming in at number 7, I'm checking again. Coming in at number 6 is Dawn of the Dead, 1978. And coming in at number 5, which is going to piss a lot of people off, which is fine with me, and that is Day of the Dead, Need to Feed. I have, and they're like, I can hear you out there like going, oh, please. You know, he's got that above, you know, Day of the Dead 78, you know, or Dawn of the Dead 78, and he's got that above, you know, Day of the Dead 85. Yeah, I really do, because I have so much fun with this movie for whatever reason. It trips me. It ticks all my boxes. It's fun. It's exciting. I'm laughing. I'm jumping. I love the gore. I love the makeup. I like this movie. It's just one of those that I like. So coming in at number 5, we have Day of the Dead, Need to Feed, from 2008, starring Mina Sabari, Nick Cannon, and Michael Welsh. And I just love this movie. And Ving Rhames is also in it. So, you know, I really love this movie. I like this movie. And we're getting up to now number 4. Number 4 is also one that I guess people will bitch at me for like putting above some of the others, but I don't care. It is true that I really love this movie. I think it's very underrated, and that is George A. Romero's Diary of the Dead. Now, Diary of the Dead was released in 2007, written and directed by George Romero, and starring Michelle Morgan, Joshua Close, and Sean Roberts of Wesker Resident Evil fame. So, I love this found footage movie. I love the direction he took this in. And I thought it was very interesting how Survival of the Dead is a side story that you saw the beginning of in this movie, which was cool. You know, to take just this one little scene and then go and turn it into a whole movie of its own. That was kind of neat. But I love Diary of the Dead. I just really enjoy. I'm sitting here, I'm watching the movie, I'm engrossed, I'm engaged, I'm loving the characters, I'm loving the dialogue. I'm liking the effects. Everything is fine. And yeah, so Diary of the Dead is number 4. Now, number 3, we have Land of the Dead. Now, Land of the Dead was once again directed by George and written by George A. Romero, starring John Leguizamo, Asia Argento, and Simon Baker. It was released in 2005. It's also got Dennis Hopper and some other cool people. This is the 2-pack that has Land of the Dead in it. Land of the Dead right there. But yes, so at number 3, trying to cover it up so he gets his own spotlight, is Land of the Dead. I really, really love that movie. It's just action-packed. I love everything about it. I like the story. I love the actors. I like the special effects, you know. I think it was like a really great movie. So, yeah. Now we come to the biggies. And this is the one that I've had a halt, you know. I'm still like sitting here thinking about it. But I do believe that I've made up my mind. I think I said in one of the videos that I still was just right down to the wire. I just could not make up my mind. But I believe that I have. Because, of course, when I announce number 2, you're going to know what number 1 is. But in the end, all things considered, and I just had to really talk to my heart about it, and that was which one of these would be my favorite, my number 1 of this movie. And they are so close, but number 2 is going to be Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. So, Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead was released in 2004, directed by Zack Snyder, written by George Romero and James Gunn, starring Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, and Mackie Pfeiffer. And yeah, this is the collector's edition. Very, very happy. And of course I'm talking about the unrated director's cut. But yeah, so it ended up in a terrible struggle for number 1, but it just couldn't beat number 1 in my heart. It's so close. It's only the hair of a chihuahua that separates them. But Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead is number 2. Leaving, of course, my favorite, my love, my number 1 of this particular little universe, George A. Romero's and its spin-offs of Night of the Living Dead. My number 1 is the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead. It is my number 1 favorite. Love the makeup, love the special effects, love the story, love the cast that they chose. Everything about this movie is a perfect 10 out of 10 masterpiece to me. Starring Tony Todd and Patricia Tallman and Tom Towles. Directed by Tom Savini. Written by Russo and Romero. And yeah, everything about it was just great. I loved how the actors played off each other. I think Patricia Tallman, aka Lita from Babylon 5. And then, of course, everybody knows Tony Todd. I think that they were great. This movie is truly a masterpiece to me, and that's the remake of Night of the Living Dead from 1990. And it takes my number 1 position. And, yeah. So I've named them all. 2 of them that I don't have. The 78 Dawn of the Dead, which I can't find unless you want to pay $55 for it. And, the original Night of the Living Dead, which I've just never bothered to get because I only remember that when I was 16 and saw it, that it didn't like do a lot for me. I don't know. Maybe I would look at it with different eyes if somebody gave it to me. But I don't know. So yeah, that's all of the ones that I have. I have the whole stack of all of them, except for those 2. One that I would really like to have, the 78 Day of the Dead. Hopefully somebody will reissue it or I can get a hold of it. And yes, Number 1, go back through them. Day of the Dead Bloodline, Day of the Dead 1985, Survival of the Dead, Day of the Dead Need to Feed, Diary of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake, and we finish with Night of the Living Dead. That is my ranking. If you haven't been made completely sick by now, feel free to leave your ranking in there. Those that you hate, those that you don't. I would love to see it. I'd love to see some videos too. If somebody's got a video of their Night of the Living Dead universe, I'd like to see it too. But Night of the Living Dead is number 1 spot after much arguing and thinking and heart pulling and all of that. I ended up choosing it over Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead as my number 1 of all of these movies is Night of the Living Dead from 1990. And that concludes that little Dead Festival. I do want to do 3, I've got 3 little alt zombie movies that I wanted to do, because I've done so many, but I really want to do Night of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead, the little horror comedy crap from the 80s. I want to do that because it's fun. But I also want to do Maggie, and I want to do The Cured. These are like alt zombie movies. I think they're really special, and that's surprising because I don't like PG-13 horror. But yeah, I want to talk about Maggie, and I want to talk about The Cured, and then we're going to play around with Return of the Living Dead. So I will see you in the next thing I do. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye. Always remember and never forget, you are a very, very special person, even if you hate my ranking and think I am completely ass backwards and wrong. I would love for you to tell me why. Well, I know why, because you just don't agree. But I would love for you to tell me yours. And I will see you in the next thing I do. Bye-bye.